We control the social media, we can find out significant insights. And I'm not overly convinced, but it's not my place in the position I'm in the industry to comment on that too much. But it brought me to thinking, what is the power of social networks? What fundamentally has been going on with these? I'll talk about the social network stuff first. I got two examples of things that brought home to me what social networks have done. Not so much to market research, but to the world in general. I happen to know a lot about the jewelry industry. A few weeks ago, I was reading a trade jewelry magazine called JCK. And it's all sorts of stuff about, who's got new product lines and this, that and the other, and marketing tips and all this kind of stuff. A good couple of pages dedicated to using Twitter and Facebook to increase your revenue. The jewelry industry is a very old industry, 4,000 years old. I mean, people were selling jewelry in Babylonia, I'm quite sure. And it's a mixture of the bricks and mortar mom and pop stores, the online stores like Blue Nile, where you can buy overpriced diamonds, because diamonds are always overpriced, and a whole range. And there are a number of people in this magazine saying, we got onto Twitter with my younger associates and my sons, and we increased by 60% our sales of jewelry under $1,000 or under $500. And people were just using this for marketing, and it was changing the way their businesses were working very effectively. The second story is one that, I found was pretty profound. A couple of months ago, I was with some friends. One of these people works for a company, relatively well known, and they regularly launch new products. It's something they've been doing for 25 years. They launch a new product and there may be reformulations of it and changes, and it's the whole new product development thing. Of course, as they've been doing it for so long, they've got all sorts of models about all sorts of things that happen. And, one of the aspects of their product line is sometimes people will come up with lawsuits against them. Not always, but there are some of their products that there's the potential because, they feel that it might have harmed them or their offspring or something like that. Now, this person had just been through a product launch. It's pretty normal reformulation, whatever it was. And they were thinking, okay, we're just going to go out there, we're going to put it out, it's going to be okay. But it wasn't. What happened was that there was a backlash that they couldn't control. And they said, we've got a graph that we know goes like that, and complaints, and they said, that went away. It all just disappeared. They said all that 25 years of normative data for that aspect of product launches is no longer relevant. And for this company, that was very profound. And for her and her boss, I think, this was something that they'd never experienced before. And the comment that was given to me was, when the news media interacted with the social media, it just went to hell. The structure, and to their point of view, and this is nothing to do with market research, to their point of view, the structure of the marketplace and the way the consumers interacted with that company about these products had changed fundamentally. And all those norms that they had, that they carefully crafted, just weren't relevant anymore, and they're going to have to go back and rethink them. The other thing that, again, I happen to know about, which is totally relevant to my job because of my background, is the whole neuromarketing field. And I kind of keep a weather eye on that. I'm interested in it. It's something to read about. And I noticed that, this is a technology conference. This is a deeply technical field. And I noticed that there was one comment about it. I said, okay, we track things, which is what they're going to do. And I was looking at this stuff, and I kind of came to the conclusion that the neuromarketing people, the cognitive neuroscientists, which is the American term for them, are pretty much the barbarians at the gate of what we believe to be market research. We're not really paying any attention to them because it's a very alien field to us. It's a very technological field, and they're coming in, and they want part of this business. They have really cool technologies. I mean, they can sit there and talk about 3 Tesla fMRIs with synchronous 42-channel EEG. A friend of mine does that in Cincinnati. I mean, that's actually pretty cool. Magnetic density, and it's It's all very complicated, you've got to know what you're doing. And I'm a bit unfair, whereas the market research guy go, well, we did a web survey and cross-tabulations, you know, and stuff. That's not really accurate. We've seen in the conference that things are much more sophisticated. But I'm trying to draw a contrast here. Now, there are manifest and many problems with the way cognitive neuroscience is being applied to the consumer market. I mean, I've given people lists of them. But this is the one field where they can monetize all that knowledge. So a lot of these people that come out with degrees in cognitive neuroscience, in Europe they call it neuropsychology, and you know, you haven't got much to do, which is why I ended up here. You know, what are you going to do with it? You're going to go and work in a hospital? That's great, but if you don't want to do that, there wasn't much else to do. But the way they can monetize that knowledge is in the consumer world now, because they've developed the techniques, and you can go to the MIT website and they post a lot of their lecture notes on stuff, and I've been using it to get back up to speed. I think it's fascinating how far they've come in really being able to nail down mechanisms of memory, which obviously, you know, is something relevant to all of us. And one of the issues with these guys is they don't care about what people think. It's irrelevant. They don't really believe that asking people questions about why they do things gets you anywhere. They simply don't care. They have a totally different vision of the way people operate. And, you know, one of the guys who, while he's not a neuroscientist, is very famous in psychology is Daniel Kahneman. And he won the prize in 2002 for economics. They couldn't give him the Nobel Prize for psychology because there wasn't one, you know, fairly obviously. And he's all about psychology of judgment and decision-making in situations. And one of the things that he's, you know, pretty much about is automatic processing. You do things best when it's automatic, when there is no conscious intervention. And he would be the same thing, asking people why they do things, asking people why they behave in a certain way, he doesn't see as relevant. And I kind of think, given that he won a Nobel Prize, that it might be something to consider. And these neuroscientists are coming, and they're not going to stop coming because they've got a lot of money, they've got a lot of people backing them, and they want to be able to sell their stuff. And it's sexy. I went to the LinkedIn to look at the groups. You know, Casro's doing pretty well there, beating SMR. You know. Neuromarketing people coming up. Next generation market research, 8,403. That's pretty good. I thought that was pretty good. The social networking stuff that we talk about, it's accessible. We understand it. It's not a vastly different set of technologies. It integrates with our current practices. We can review it. We can view it in some way as qualitative research. We did see something about automatic text processing, which is quite interesting. I actually believe there are better tools out there for natural language processing. There has been a huge amount of work in this, so I think that's something that is really going to take off. It's an easy learning curve because we use Facebook all the while and all this kind of stuff. It's out there. Cognitive neuroscience isn't so accessible. It's very different technology. Now, if you're a technologist and you like tech, oh yeah, it's cool. You know, when I was doing it, I felt like I was in Star Trek in some of the labs I worked in. You know, all these lovely flashing lights. You know, if you're into that stuff, it's really rewarding. Radically different practices and ideas. I mean, totally different. It is a steep learning curve. It's not something that you're going to get your heads around very quickly, and it's complex. But don't worry, house prices will never fall. Things aren't going to change radically. I was a bit depressed. I was looking for pictures of old men in the office on a website for downloading, and they all look like me, so I thought one a bit different. Talking about some other changes. Google. We're going to listen to Google again. Everything we do going forward will be via a mobile lens centering on the cloud, computing and connectivity. Going back to the themes here, one of the most popular talks you'd see was the one about the mobile surveys, the mobile ethnography. And certainly, you know, it just seems incomprehensible to think that this isn't the future. Your personal computer now is now your phone. You know, that's what it's become. You know, and the guy who originally was said from digital research, anybody remember those? They went away. I think it was Olson said that, I can't see why anybody would want a personal computer. Well, you know, it didn't work out so well for him. Schmidt said that being a statistician was the cool new thing, and somebody else I saw did comment on this. And the last one was kind of interesting. You have to expect it. Google's throwing out Windows. They were very upset about the China hacking incident, and they blamed that on Windows, and that's 20,000 Windows licenses that Microsoft isn't going to see again. I was thinking again about what we've been saying about market research. MR 2.0, next generation market research. How about word processing 2.0? Does that sound really forward and dynamic? Next generation word processing, a bit better, but not so sure. Betamax, anybody remember Betamax? VHS war? How many people came up with Betamax 2.0? I don't think anybody would be terribly interested in that. Next generation Betamax. And this will upset, I think it's lipstick on a pig. I think you've got to think of some different words for this. If only we want to optimise our websites better for getting hits about, for getting people to do business with us. I really would put out that, things have changed. I think they changed radically. And I think we've got to catch up with that. And as technologists, we've got to understand that within our businesses, people look to us to know about this stuff. So I believe that mobile computing and the cloud is the real future. I got a good friend who's fairly senior in the market research industry, very experienced. He was asking me about barcode scanning on mobile phones. And there's an application called ShopSavvy. And ShopSavvy is pretty cool. You point it at a barcode, it reads the barcode, goes out to the web, it downloads information about what that product is, it will tell you how much you can get it for on the web, how much for you can get it anywhere. Then you can click on something and it'll show you locally, it pulls up the GPS, shows you locally, and it'll say, well look, Target, which is 1 mile down the road, is selling that for $25 cheaper. Really very, very interesting application. And I have occasionally seen people standing in Target, they've got the phone out and they're doing this, and they're trying ShopSavvy, and I tried it, and I don't think the shop assistants like it, but nothing to do about that. And I said to this guy, well, this is what it does, and all this sort of stuff. And I said, you've got to get a new phone. You've got to get a phone that does this. He said, all I need is a quarter for the phone. I don't need anything else. I told him to retire. I don't think you can go forward in our industry with that attitude. And I think that's pretty important, that we've really got to jump on these things. As I said, the cognitive neuroscience people is one of the few ways that they can monetize, and they're terribly motivated. Social networks, I think, have restructured consumerism. And it wasn't that this jewelry magazine was having a special feature about how to use social networks in your business. It was just having a magazine about marketing. It was now just de rigueur. It was part of the business. Somebody mentioned Foursquare earlier. It's one of these new, relatively new web services where you check into a location. You say, well, I'm here, and it posts it on your Facebook account, and it might tweet it, and you can tell it to give GPS locations and all that kind of stuff. It did actually start in New York, so far as I remember. And a lot of people go, well, why would you want to do that? And there's a guy who blogs about that, and he said, what you think doesn't matter. People are doing it. He said this company's going to be sold for a lot of money, and if you think it's irrelevant, it doesn't matter. One of the ways that they're looking at monetizing is say, let the local businesses see that you've checked in at the venue. Now, that's an interesting idea. You go into the bar or the restaurant, and it's very easy to say, okay, I'm here, and now the guy who owns the place or the company know that you're there. Maybe they're going to offer you something as customer loyalty. They don't need to recognise you. The staff don't need to remember you. You're there. And as this guy summed up, Foursquare isn't important. The behaviour that it's causing is this idea that you can know where people are and that they're going to give you that information. It all comes back down to the consumer connectivity thing. And in closing, I thought I'd put up a few books to read if you're interested in any of this stuff. A very good book about the cognitive neuroscience subject is Johan Lehrer. He's a very good speaker if you get a chance to see him. I saw him at SMR, How We Decide. There's a book called Biology. Please don't read it. It drives everybody crazy. Ray Pointer has got a book coming out on online and social media research. I'm sure that'll be very interesting. I'm sure I won't agree with all of it, but it'll be interesting. I saw on Facebook this morning it's due for actually August the 13th. I think somebody pointed out that was a Friday. I'm not sure that that's actually true. And finally, Predictably Irrational, which is a great book about all sorts of issues to do with the way people make decisions. And I think has a lot of relevance for us today. So I'd like to thank you again for staying. You're all invited for drinks. And I think, you know, the old cliche, change is constant, is really something we've got to take on board, because I think everything's changed. Thank you. It'll absorb us if we're not careful. And I think that's the real problem. You know, we saw years ago that the big consulting companies came in and took a slice of business out of market research for, you know, to do with employee satisfaction or customer satisfaction. And I think there's the danger that we're going to get sliced. I really do think that's a big deal. And I think, you know, just because I suppose because of my bias with the cognitive neuroscience stuff, is that those guys are awfully keen. And they awfully want into our business, and they're not going to stop. So yeah, I think it could absorb us.
Do you see the role, I mean, what role do you see, for example, behavioral economics playing in market research? And we may still need to use some form of web questioning or mobile phone questioning to be able to address those questions.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, I've taken an extreme position to make a point, but yeah, that's true. I think that a lot more of the modelling, because we've got a lot more data, and maybe we're augmenting the data we have about certain consumer behaviour, and then, you know, yeah, we ask a questionnaire that asks some certain key questions that we need to fill out the model. I think that, you know, it's the whole, to my mind, actually, you know, going back to Ray's comments, is the whole data thing is the big difference. When I started, getting the data was just, you know, the big problem. Now we go out and we find all this data. It's really making sense of it.
I think we're at a point in this industry where we've gone, in the last 16 years that I've been in the business, from information to the innovation adverse and innovation resistant to innovation overload, and I think it's only going to get worse, and that includes technology. I wonder if you agree with that, and if so, what you think the impact of that is going to be on our profession.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's so much stuff coming at you. You know, every time I see another, you know, interesting website, I'm thinking, well, why didn't I know about that? Well, you can't spend 24 hours a day sitting in front of the web. And I suppose the only way to overcome the overload is I guess, specialisation, and you carving out a very particular niche of knowledge about technology or methodologies. But yeah, and I think that us as technologists sit in a situation where perhaps the CEOs expect us to know about all this stuff.
That was a good talk, dude.
Thank you.
All right.
Pleasure.